Intermittent fasting is quickly becoming a very popular and very controversial tool for weight loss and health optimization. Anytime something gets this popular, lies about it, misconceptions about it, myths about it will start to pop up in the popular media, mainstream media. And this video is going to talk about 7 myths about intermittent fasting and the actual truth of the matter. Anytime something like fasting becomes very popular, fasting is not eating, and therefore you're going to be costing the big food corporations millions of dollars. And with the health improvements that you're going to gain from intermittent fasting, you're going to be costing the big pharma drug manufacturers millions of dollars. And they're not too happy about that. And so when something threatens the profits of huge corporations, almost as if by magic, you'll start to see articles in magazines and on websites and news stories on mainstream news about how it's bad and you should worry about it and you shouldn't do it. This video is going to get rid of all those worries and concerns that you might have about intermittent fasting. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician with 20 years of clinical experience, and we're about to bust 7 myths about intermittent fasting. I have several videos about fasting on this YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link to my Fasting 101 playlist down in the show notes. You can check those out as your interest grows about intermittent fasting. There's also an excellent book out there now that is available both in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. It's written by a kidney specialist, Dr. Jason Fung. Also, co-authors are Eve Mayer and Megan Ramos. These guys are some of the world's leading authorities on intermittent fasting, and I highly recommend that book. I'll put a link down in the show notes as well. Now, let's jump into the 7 myths. The first myth is it's unnatural. Now, nothing could be further from the truth, but if you grew up in a normal household, then you've never fasted, and your parents have never fasted, and perhaps your grandparents have never fasted. So it feels on its face very unnatural, unusual, maybe even dangerous. But nothing could be further from the truth. The human beings have been fasting for millennia. Every major religion, before it maybe became modernized, had fasting as a component of that religion. Fasting has recognized for thousands and thousands of years as a very healthy thing to do. Down in the show notes below, I'm going to put links to a ton of research showing many, but not all, of the health benefits of intermittent fasting. The second myth is that it slows down your metabolism. Again, nothing could be further from the truth. What actually slows down your metabolism is calorie restriction, trying to eat less and move more, and then portion control. So you're only having a 4-ounce portion of steak instead of eating all the steak that you want, including the fat. That's what actually slows down your metabolism, is chronic semi-starvation. Intermittent fasting is a much different thing than that, as you'll learn from my other videos on this channel about intermittent fasting. The third myth is that it might cause vitamin, mineral, nutrient deficiencies. Again, nothing is further from truth in this. Fasting is never going to cause a deficiency. What's going to cause a deficiency is eating nutrient-void foods like processed grains, sweetened things that are full of vegetable oil, things that can sit on a grocery store shelf for 3 years. And even the mold and the bugs doesn't want to eat it. Eating those things will lead to nutritional deficiencies. The only way you can develop a nutritional deficiency with intermittent fasting is if when you break your fast, you're eating nutrient-void foods. But when you break your fast, if you're smart enough to eat very nutrient-dense foods like our ancestors have eaten since time immemorial, then you're going to be getting all the vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids that your body needs for optimal function. The next myth is that intermittent fasting will cause muscle loss. Again, totally untrue. Totally unfounded. There's actually quite a bit of research that shows that this is not the case whatsoever. When you break your fast, if you eat a low protein diet that's deficient in amino acids and vitamins and minerals, that could lead to muscle loss. Intermittent fasting on a daily basis or doing longer fasts a few times a month is never going to lead to any meaningful muscle loss. It's just not true. Now, if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet that's void of fat and protein and other things that your body actually needs, you might lose some muscle. So I highly recommend you put away the old fad diet of eat less, move more, and eat lots of whole grains. That will contribute to muscle loss. Intermittent fasting never does. The next myth is that you shouldn't exercise fasted, and somehow this is dangerous or unhealthy. Again, absolutely untrue. There's no research to back that up at all. Many world-class athletes now on purpose work out very strenuously in the fasted condition. This actually is going to increase the level of autophagy and cellular repair in many of your body's tissues, including the muscle. Take it from me, that's just not going to happen. Again, there's research down below that you can read for yourself. The next myth is that it's bad for your hormones. And you'll hear this sometimes, that women shouldn't fast, or people with thyroid problems shouldn't fast, or people with adrenal problems shouldn't fast. Again, no research supports this whatsoever. This is a complete and utter myth. More and more people, including my wife, Nisha, who has Hashimoto's thyroiditis, has found that she feels so much better when she implements a daily intermittent fast into her daily routine. And it's just become part of her daily ritual now. She just doesn't eat until lunch or later in the day. And it has actually helped to control her fatigue and her sleepiness and her other Hashimoto symptoms. So don't let anybody tell you that it's bad for your hormones in any way. When you're intermittent fasting, like I talk about in my other YouTube videos on this channel, you're actually going to be moving every single one of your hormones into the sweet position to give you optimal health. The next myth is that fasting will cause you to have low blood sugar. Absolutely, again, completely unfounded, untrue. Research in the links below. The thing that's going to cause low blood sugar is if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet, your insulin races up to match that glucose and pull it back down, and then it pulls it too far. Indeed, most people who think they have hypoglycemia, they'll have a blood sugar dip about 2 or 3 hours after they've eaten a high carbohydrate meal. As you convert to a low carbohydrate diet with some intermittent fasting, the episodes of low blood sugar will go completely away. Many diabetics will have episodes of low blood sugar because when they start to intermittent fast, they quickly find out that they're on too much unneeded diabetic medication, and they get to actually lower their diabetes medication dosages, and in many cases, stop the medication altogether, because when you're eating low carb and doing a daily intermittent fast, magically, you don't need that medication anymore. And then the last myth is that intermittent fasting makes you feel bad. And some people will say you'll have no energy because you haven't eaten, you'll be sluggish, you'll have fatigue. Again, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have implemented intermittent fasting as part of their daily ritual, and they feel much better because of it. Most people either notice a little bit improvement of how they feel or a lot of bit improvement in how they feel when they start to intermittent fast on a daily basis. And I think you'll find this to be true for you as well. The more you know about intermittent fasting, the easier it becomes, the less dangerous it sounds, the more natural it sounds, and the more healthy it sounds. And that's because it actually is. Intermittent fasting doesn't have a billion-dollar corporation behind it. It doesn't have $1 million ad budget behind it. It's just people like you and people like me sharing our results and our experience in a word-of-mouth fashion. And in my experience, that's the things that are actually true, that you can actually depend on. If a loved one or a family member said, hey, you should try this intermittent fasting, it's pretty powerful, that's probably something you should listen to. I'm going to include a link to my Fasting 101 playlist so that you can improve your knowledge about fasting and find out just how easy and how healthy it is. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.